My name is Angad Bhalla. I'm the director of Herman's House.
Now, your movie is about an artist who hooks up with somebody who's on basically 40 years of solitary confinement at Angola prison. How did you get involved with these people?
Well, I actually knew Jackie, the artist, well before I got involved with the film. We were friends and met in college. And basically, about 5 years ago, one of the galleries that had put on our exhibit put out a book of their edited correspondence over the years of creating this dream house of Herman's project. And I read this book and I was like, wow, this is an amazingly touching story and would also give audiences a different way of thinking about prisons and entering the prison if we can do it in a documentary and capture it on film. And so for the last 5 years I worked on doing that, and here we are to premiere the film.
So now 5 years since the first. What was the first thing you shot involving her?
Actually, the first thing I did was, before I even shot with her, I spoke to Herman over the phone, because even at that point I was almost 100% sure, which proved right, that I would not be allowed access to the prison, that they were not going to let me shoot in the prison. So I knew the only way I would have his presence would be on these phone calls. And I wanted to see what would that sound like. And in the first phone call I realized that, wow, this guy has something, even in his voice, that would be strong enough to be a powerful character on screen.
Now, how much access does he have to the phone, seeing how he's in solitary in Angola prison?
It's not that much, but basically he is allowed out of his cell for 1 hour a day, and some of those days he's able to make these 15-minute phone calls. But it wasn't the kind of thing where I would know when he would call, or we could schedule anything. And then again, it was 15 minutes here and there, once a week or twice a week, or sometimes not for months when they took his phone privileges away. So it was definitely a different kind of interview, if you will, when you don't actually get to sit down with someone and talk to them for a few hours.
Now, did you send him phone cards or to help the process along?
Actually, all the phone calls that you're allowed to make out of prison are collect calls. So I'm being charged, and my phone number had to go through this approval process where they checked up on me, but eventually he was able to add my phone number to his list. He's only allowed to call, I think, 10 numbers, and that's how we were able to talk, but all the charges are to the receiver.
So it's a pretty expensive project on that level.
Yeah, I mean, it was a pretty expensive project on a lot of levels, but definitely phone bill included. I mean, I don't think all in all that was the most expensive of our costs. We had lots of different visual effects and animation that cost a lot more. But yes, I mean, definitely the phone calls cost, I think, $10 a call, and they just keep adding up.
Still cheaper than going to the prison, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I mean,
15-minute visits over the years.
No, and I have visited Herman over the years, but only, I was never allowed to shoot, so it was just us talking, person to person. But then sometimes we would try to then recreate, or I'd ask him questions when we met that I'd try to say, remember that question, let's talk about that now that I can record it on the phone.
Now, how is that also a reason why there's really no updated photos of Herman in part of the film, that there is no photos taken of Herman?
Oh, no, there were several photos available of Herman. We just kind of made the creative decision not to use them in the film. Firstly, because I think, Herman is a real presence in the film, and we didn't want it to be like every time you heard him, you would have to see him, because that would kind of get boring. But also we thought, this is a film about imagination and confinement, and if Herman's asked to imagine what life is like outside the prison, maybe we, by not showing him, force the viewers to kind of imagine, what does this person look like? And it also reinforces the fact that you don't see him because he's in confinement. We're hoping, I know few people have seen the film and are frustrated, and I just hope the frustration isn't directed at me, the filmmaker, for not putting a photo, but directed at this prison system that's kept him locked up for the last 40 years.
Yeah, I mean, as someone who watched it, that was my theory. It was like, well, you can see why there's no access to the guy, because it's Angola prison. It's the rough one. It's the one that everybody... Did you have fears when you first thought of going down to visit the place?
No, not really. I mean, I'd never been to visit a prison before, so that's obviously, a little bit of a kind of nervous situation. But, you know, I had spoken to him on the phone so many times before I'd met him, so I knew who I was going to meet. And, you know, Angola prison is, I mean, it's on this beautiful farm plantation land. I mean, it's actually visually not displeasing. I mean, when you think about what goes on there and the kind of, you know, confinement that happens and the number of people there that die who spend their whole lives there, I mean, it is creepy. But, you know, I was more just excited, actually, to finally see this person who I'd been talking to on the phone.
How long between the phone conversations when you first finally got to see him?
I think it was pretty early. It was about 6 months in. That was the first time I went down to New Orleans, and I started, you know, this was after we'd started the film now, so I was shooting some things. And then since then, every time that I went down to film, I made a point of I'd always visited him. So I've been visiting him for the last 4 years, you know, on and off, whenever I could get down there.
Now, did it surprise you when Jackie picked up and moved to New Orleans?
It did. It was not, you know, I think in documentaries you never know what's going to happen, and sometimes the unexpected is what adds the richness to it. But it wasn't something I thought of at all. I mean, I think it was interesting because I think her art career was starting to, you know, grow, and she was starting to get a lot of attention. She was showing in New York and in Europe, and it's like, why would you go to New Orleans, this place where there's not much of a big art scene or thriving scene? But at the same time, I also understood. I mean, she would spend all the free time she had getting to New Orleans and trying to go visit him and spend time on this. So at a certain point, I think she just said, well, why am I traveling from other places here? Why don't I base myself here and travel out for other things? Yeah, and so it was surprising because, you know, just to see her pick up and move, but I also understood, given her commitment to the project, why she'd want to be closer.
Now, when you got released from Solitary for that time being, what was your biggest fear that would happen during that period of time when he was in with the general population?
Well, I mean, he was never in with the general population. Basically, they put him and basically 15 other prisoners who'd been in Solitary into a dorm, and they were all together. And I mean, I was definitely afraid. I mean, he's an older guy, and you know, you hear about the violence in prison, and you're like, you know, what could happen. But at the same time, you know, he's a very competent, thoughtful, you know, I also trusted that he knows the system better than anyone, and he would be able to kind of navigate it, and he did, and he actually had an amazingly positive impact on these other prisoners, just being around him with his spirit in that short time. I was hoping that he would, you know, it was like the step before his release, but that obviously didn't happen.
Now, how long has he been back in Solitary since your movie took 4 years?
He was moved back into Solitary in December of 2008, so it's almost 3.5 years, or three years and 4 months that he's been back in Solitary.
So now, I guess it's hard to ask it. Has he seen any cut of the film?
No, he actually hasn't. Unfortunately, there's no real way for me to get it to him. I've played him audio stuff that's happened in the film, and I have sent him some photos and things, but that's not the same as seeing the film. We're definitely going to send him an entire transcript now that the film is done, and maybe have stills of what the scene looks like, but that's very different than actually seeing a film. So hopefully he gets out and he's able to see the film, or some other way. Maybe if the film's nationally broadcast, they'll put it on TV, because sometimes they have TV access for the prisoners.
Now, is it more important in this case that his relatives who are on the outside, how they react to the film and relay it back to him then?
Yeah, I mean, we've shown it to Jackie, and we've shown it to other of his friends and family on the outside, and they've relayed back the message. So I think, you know, he's happy about the film, and he's happy also about the attention the film is bringing to his case, which I think, you know, and the situation of people in Solitary in general. So, you know, overall he's happy, but I think it would be great for him to actually see it and kind of experience it the way I'd want him to.
Just, yeah, I mean, it is one of those odd moments where you're just like, you know, it's kind of like when you watch Lock Up on MSNBC when they have the prison marathons and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, these people know what they're really getting into, or what these people are doing, the TV show people are doing to them. Mm-hmm. And you're just like, well, they can't complain for at least a couple months, until they get out. But now, did you, Jack? How's Jackie? Is she still doing the piece about her and Herman around the country and the world?
She's doing less of the exhibits of Herman's house, or the house that Herman built, her exhibit where she shows his dream house and his model cell. That's happening less and less. She has other art projects that she travels around to different galleries to, but she's still very much focused on trying to find land in New Orleans that would kind of become the foundation to perhaps build this house. So in that sense, I think she's kind of moved stages from doing the exhibit to actually focusing on trying to build it.
Now, as a filmmaker, when you're dealing with land transactions, is it kind of unnerving that nobody wants you in the real estate office when you're making, trying to push the numbers around, and you're just like, how can I get this conveyed, that what the tensions and stuff of her trying to make this?
Well, she actually never really got that close. I mean, we had a few times where she was getting close, but there wasn't that access issue because I think it's hard to say. It was the whole project is about a dream, and how realistic that dream was, I don't know, and maybe we'll never know. I mean, I don't think it's up to me to say whether somebody else's dream has the chance of being realized. But to me, it also became more about this dream than it's being actualized. I think just having it gave them both so much purpose and more meaning to what they were doing, that what does it matter if the dream is realized? But it didn't get close in terms of our filming ever to get into that real estate stuff. I mean, the few scenes, or one of the scenes with real estate agents is in the film, and it was kind of always at that level that she floated, where she was just trying to find land that could work,
Now, how did you react when you got back the animation of what Herman's house would look like according to his design so far?
Well, I had actually, we redid that animation I thought they were beautiful. I mean, we worked really hard on that with, basically part of the way Jackie had made this happen was through the sweat equity of people who reacted to the project and were like, wow, this is beautiful. So there's somebody in Chicago, an architect, who this is what he does. He makes these animations, and he read an article about the project and was like, I'm going to do whatever I can to help. And so then when it came for us to make the film, we actually worked with him using Jackie and Herman's instructions to try to get the house in a way that he would envision it. And knowing that he had been doing a lot of work with Jackie before, we knew he had kind of the heart and soul of the project in him already. But it was still amazing. I mean, I still react when I see it on the big screen and hear him describe it.
Now, how much time did you spend in Jackie's version of Herman's cell?
Not that long, actually. I mean, when she would build it, I mean, I would watch her build it, but inside, not more than a few minutes, actually, at any time. I mean, but even that, you feel how small it is. I mean, and you can't really imagine the idea of staying there for so long. And I remember Herman talking about, well, wouldn't it be cool if, I mean, it's great that these people are getting to see what Solitary is like for him and thousands of other people by going to the exhibit, but you can't actually feel what it's like until you're locked in there and left, and you have no idea when you're getting out. And he was like, maybe that should be the next stage of the project, though I don't think that would go over too well with lawyers at an art gallery. But I know what he meant, I mean, it's incredibly small, but I don't think I could ever imagine, knowing that you can just walk out, what it actually feels like for Herman.
So you didn't try to sleep overnight to sort of, get that realness directing him.
No, I didn't go that far. I didn't.
Now, are you still? I guess you're still keeping in touch with Herman, correct?
Oh, very much so. I speak to him whenever he can call, he calls. We're actually working on a fully interactive version of the film that will be online and available in the fall with the National Film Board of Canada. So we're still actually recording new recordings. Some of that we're using recordings we've already made, but sometimes we have new questions because it's a different format that we're using. So we're still involved. You know, she's still very much part of my life. And you know, I'm one of, you know, he doesn't have that many. He's got 10 numbers on his list of the people he can call to get messages out to the world. Mm-hmm. So he calls, I'm sure there are other people, but sometimes he just calls me to say, oh, can you let so-and-so know? Oh, that's not him. Can you let so-and-so know that, you know, I need this message sent or I need that sent. So he's definitely, you know, still a part of my life and a friend. You know, we've been talking for 4 years. Let me just put this on silent. Not that I don't need to answer it, but I just want to.
Is that the phone Herman has the number for?
That is actually. It was a bit more complicated when I first started working on this film because he wasn't allowed to have cell phones on his list, which meant he would have to call my landline, which meant the whole scheduling the time thing became much more complicated because he can't really give me an exact time, but I'm also can't just be sitting in my home all day. So we try to give time ranges, and you know, it worked out sometimes we missed calls. But in the last couple of years, he's been able to add cell phones to his list, so now he can call me quite easily.
How are you recording the conversations?
At various, you know, when we were using a landline, it was kind of one of these phone taps that goes to the, you know, you plug into the phone, and it allows you to take an audio stream out. And with my cell phone, there's just an application on my cell phone that allows me to, you know, record any calls.
So it keeps it pretty simple now.
Now it is simple, but I also felt there was something. I've had many more technical problems because it's an app, you know, and sometimes it just malfunctions. Versus when it was a landline, there was something, you know, it was a hard wire, and you would almost always get the audio, whatever the quality is. Sometimes this, you know, just doesn't work because it's an app. You know, it just makes.
Did you find yourself writing immediately after each conversation? Okay.
Okay.
So, did you find yourself after each conversation quickly writing down the highlights in case somehow the thing didn't go right and you need to have him repeat something?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Although, you know, a lot of the times I could just ask him the same questions and he would get even better. You know, he's that kind of person where sometimes I would give him questions in advance and he would think about them, and his answers would get more and more interesting. So that wasn't a problem. I mean, we did transcribe every word of all these phone calls because in the editing process, you know, it's not like a standard interview. You have these 15-minute episodic calls that then we would have to cut together. And, you know, we'd be cutting phone calls together from years apart just because he happened to be talking about similar topics or themes and things. So it was an interesting edit because it was almost like a fiction film in that way.
Now, did you, as you were editing it, did you make sure you had a window in your editing room so you didn't get too claustrophobic dealing with Herman's claustrophobia, or, you know, the subject matter of Solitary, that you wanted some space?
Well, no, actually, that would have been good, but we didn't have. Well, we had a window, but it was a window to indoors. It was all indoors. It was kind of a window within the room. But I mean, we definitely would go outside and take breaks and get outside because, you know, I mean, I think that's just helpful for any creative process to leave and come back. But yeah, I mean, it's hard to imagine, you know, to think about not having that access to the outside world. And, you know, being there with his audio, you got closer and closer to him.
Now, is there a distribution or outlet for the film yet?
No, we're still, we have pre-sold the film to a few channels in Europe, and we're in discussions with some channels in the U.S., and, you know, hopefully those discussions prove fruitful and it will be broadcast here. And, you know, this is our world premiere, so we're hoping that people, you know, see it and respond to it, and we want to bring it to a larger audience.
Cool. Okay. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, man.